was a little nervous yesterday. He was nervous? Yeah, because a lot of his nephews left down. He wants to make sure that he has a man. But they have so many. His brother-in-law's still here.
So we are on Pei Dalet of a base. I want to go back to the sugya of Rav Ina.
You want us to mute, or is the noise okay?
No, it's fine.
Darish Ravina?
Yeah, one second, I have to mute it live. Okay. Yeah, Darish Rav Ina.
Going backwards.
Well, we started it yesterday or on Erev Tisha B'Av, but we didn't finish it.
Okay.
It was up to head of the Gemara. Darish Rav Ina.
Darish Rav Ina?
Darish Rav Ina. About halfway down on the daf, right opposite the Laze Rashi.
I got it.
Darish Rav Ina pesach deresh chalusa hashechet l'choyla b'Shabbos. You were allowed to shecht as a chayla sheyesh b'sakana, so you shechted a chaya on Shabbos. The question is Kisui Hadam. So Rav Ina chayav l'chasos, because Rav Ina holds that it's part and parcel with the Shechitah, and therefore, as Rashi says, Chayav l'chasos, the kivan the nitna Shabbos lidachos etzel Shechitah zu nitches l'chol mitzvos ashel Shechitah zu. It's nitche for all of the associated mitzvahs of the Shechitah. That is what Rav Ina darshan. However, they didn't like what he said. Omaluhu Rabbis told him, you're saying something that's like wild. It's a pillar. And therefore, Lishbatua la Moirimine, his Amoyre should be taken away from him. Now, there's a Shaila, what this means. Rashi in one shot says his tongue should be cut out, very severe. And the other shot says that his announcer, his microphone should be shut off. Because in those days, the Rav would speak quietly, and then he would have someone who speaks very loud to repeat his words for everyone to hear. That person should be pulled away from him. In other words, he shouldn't be able to broadcast his shittas. And I think the ArtScroll brings down that there's a machloikas over here. If the isser of the Kisui Hadam in this particular application was the Reuya or Rabbanan. If you hold there was no earth ready, you have to dig up the earth. So that's already a Reuya. But if he had earth prepared, then it would only be a Drabonon. So on the tzad that it was a Drabonon, that's where Rabbi said, just take away his speaker. But on the tzad that he was being matar, the Reuya, that's where Rabbi said that he should cut his Tana. The Tanya, now we're going to prove that, in fact, if you shech legally on Shabbos, a chaya, you're still not supposed to do Kisui Hadam. The Reuya is going to come from a complicated Kal V'chomer. But what we have to extract from this complicated arrangement that we're about to learn is one simple fact, that even though it was shechted on Shabbos, no Kisui Hadam would be done. And so we're going to look for that tidbit of information, but then we're going to also try to understand the whole discussion that we extracted that tidbit of information from.
What do you mean legally shechted on Shabbos? What would be legal about it?
Because there was a chayla sheyesh b'sakana that they had to shech.
I didn't catch that. Okay.
It would have been allowed. The Tanya, Rabbi Yosy Omer, Kvi, ain't shayt noise b'yom. Rabbi Yosy said, and we had it in our mission as well, you don't shech a Suffolk Kaya, Suffolk Behema on Yom Tov because of the Kisui Hadam Shabbai. Vim shachtoi, ein mechasnas damai, mikal v'pei. And even if you did shecht it, which you shouldn't have, you're not allowed to do the Kisui Hadam because it's only a Suffolk if you're going to be mechuyev to do Kisui Hadam because it's a kfi, it's a Suffolk Kaya, Suffolk Behema, and we're going to show you a Kal V'chomer that you don't make Kisui Hadam on Yom Tov on a Suffolk Behema, Suffolk Kaya. And here's the Kal V'chomer from Mila. Uma Mila shevada doiche Shabbos. If it's day 8, Mila is doiche Shabbos. Yet ain't sveka doiche Yom Tov. Let's say the Yom Tov is a Suffolk if it's the 8th day or not. you won't be doicha Yom Tov. You'd have to do it after Yom Tov. So, for instance, if the child was born ben hashmashos, and we're not sure if day 8 is Yom Tov or if day 8 is Erev Yom Tov, you won't be able to do the bris on Yom Tov, nor on Erev Yom Tov. You'd have to wait till after Yom Tov. So, madach something that's doicha Shabbos, its suffix is not doicha Yom Tov. Kisui Hadam she'ein vadoi doicha Shabbos. It's not going to be doicha Shabbos. Its vaday will not be doicha Shabbos. That's going to be the important line from which we will learn what we need to do. But we'll get to exactly what I mean shortly. Kisui she'ein vadoi doicha Shabbos surely ein din she'ein sveika doicha Yom Tov. Therefore, by a kfi, which is suffix chayiv in Kisui Hadam, suffix not chayiv, it will not be doicha Yom Tov. Omar loy. So they told Yosy, we could slug up your column. Kia shofar begvulim tachia. Blowing shofar not in the base of Mikdash, you could be able to bring a rye from there. Shein vados doicha Shabbos. Even if you know for sure that this Shabbos is the first day of Yom Kippur, we don't blow shofar on Shabbos. Nevertheless, usveika doicha Yom Tov. In the case of whether or not you're sovek mechuyev in Kia shofar, it'll be doicha Yom Tov. Now, where is there a suffix if you're mechuyev in Kia shofar? The Gemara is going to work it out, but Rashi tells us right away what the Gemara is eventually going to work out. And Rashi says what the Gemara is going to work out is going according to the Manda Omar that a woman is potter of Kia shofar, yet a tumtum vadroigenis will be mechuyev on Kia shofar on Yom Tov. So someone who's suffix if they're mechuyev in Kia shofar or no is allowed to blow shofar on Yom Tov. So you see, you can't bring Reuya from its situation by a Vadai Shabbos, because we find a scenario where Vadai is not Doicha Shabbos, yet the Sveika is Doicha Yom Tov. So too, Kisui Hadam, even though it's Vadai is not Doicha Shabbos, maybe its suffix is Doicha Yom Tov.
What's the malach of Tekiah Shofar on Yom Tov?
Oh, so that's a beautiful kasha. Tosfos brings that up. Didn't we say it's a chachma bein malacha? Also, Tosfos asks about time of the shofar b'Shabbos is not because it's a malacha. Mishum shema yavirenu arba amos b'shus harabim. The whole shaykh b'Yom Tov, but that whole svara doesn't pass by Yom Tov because by Yom Tov you're allowed to carry. V'yeshloimar the shaykh nami b'Yom Tov the im isha hi zeh hatumtum. If this woman is a tumtum, also lahaiti l'tzarcha. You're not allowed to be moitzi the shofar on her behalf, the haloi mechayva, because she's not mechayv. The ein lahater itam hoyel v'hutra haitzar l'tzarach hutra nami shaloi l'tzarach. Don't be mattered using the general rule by Yom Tov.
Sveka.
Why is this sveka?
She's a suffix, and then it's a suffix if he's going to take it out of the tchum or whatever.
It's not a suffix. It's a gzeira.
Shema yavrenu.
Shema yavrenu. So
that's a suffix.
Every gzeira is a suffix. Question is, why don't you apply the same gzeira? Right? Why don't you apply the same gzeira? Since you're not allowed to take it out for her, you have to say if they take it out for her, it's going to be a deraisa because you're not allowed to take out something for her. So the same svara would apply.
Gzeir of Shema Yavrenu is only on Shabbos, not on Yom Tov.
Well, no, so Tosfos is saying the shaykh nami b'Yom Tov because for her you're not allowed to do it for no reason at all. Right? When do you have a rule of hoyel hutra itzar l'tzarech hutra nami shaloi l'tzarech? The hani dafka hecha daf itzarech hayon tzas if there's some benefit for it. Abul hacha or it's for a woman leka tzarech hayon klal. There is no need for this. Therefore, it would be prohibited. That's one shot. Inami hari kamar she'ein vado doicha Shabbos mishum gzeir derabanan shema yavirenu. Its vada isn't doicha Shabbos because of the gzeir of shema yavirenu. Usveicha doicha Yom Tov afal pidi kanami isur derabanan bitkia shehichach mavein malacha v'nitcha isur zabi safek. So I guess if you're comparing the Shabbos to Yom Tov, the same derabanan that you would be gozer by Shabbos, you should be able to be gozer by Yom Tov. And since we see you don't, we see that you can't bring a raya from how this mitzvah reacts to Shabbos to how this mitzvah would react.
How do they have Tekiah Shofar just for the ladies?
because we paskin that women are mechuyev in Kisui. Actually, we paskin, we'll see on the Manaf, we paskin that even mitzvahs that women aren't mechuyev in, they're allowed to do, and it will be done. You could even do it for them on Shabbos. We're going to see that on Amud Aleph.
So you're
The
over the rice, no?
The Gemara is going to say, you're not over the Raisa. Shemi Aviren is not on the Raisa. Kisui from Etzim is not on the Raisa. But even by the Raisas, mitzvahs that women are not mechuyev in, they're allowed to do. And the Gemara is going to say, this slugs up. Kisui for Bigvul Teichiach, there seems to be an upslug to the Kavachomer. But the Gemara is going to say that it's not an upslug to the Kavachomer, because in fact, Rabbi Yosy holds that women are allowed to do Kisui. Amar Rab Abba, I'm sorry, so that was one upslug to the Kavachomer. And then Heishav Rabbi Elazar Kappa or Baribi, a different tshuva to the same Kavachomer. And he said, you can't bring me right from Mila at all, because Mala Bila, Shekain, Eidin Aheges, Belela Yom Toiva. Mila is not known by Leil Yom Toiva. However, Kisu, Shenoig, Belela Yom Toiva, Kisu is the gay at that. And therefore you can't be Halal, bring me a right from Mila, which has a dimension in which it's less chomer than Kisui. So maybe then Kisui would be done Bisofik on Yom. Zok Gemara, Amar Avaba. This was such a good upslug that Rabbi Elazar Kapper had. Rabbi Chia said about Rabbi Yosy's Kavachomer that it's rock solid. There's no answer to it. Yet the Heishiv Rabbi Elazar Kapper Barivi Tshuva. Now, right away on its face, this is a problem because a moment before Rabbi Elazar Kapper offered a answer to the Kavachomer, we had the Gemara said, Amar Lod Ki Shayfer B'Gvulum Techiach. Why is that not a good upshot to the Kavachomer? So that's what I mentioned earlier. Rabbi Yosy is going to hold that a woman would be allowed to do Tkiyah Shofar, and it's not considered a suffix. That's why that upshot to the Kavachomer is discounted. So now let's just look for the tidbit of information that we're looking for. In the Kavachomer, it's mentioned Kisui she'ein vadoi doiche Shabbos. What exactly is referred to by the Tana Rabbi Yosy when he says that Kisui ein vadoi doiche Shabbos? My vadoi de Kisui. What is the case of avadai de Kisui below doiche Shabbos? Isn't it exactly the case of Rabbi Ina? Lav hashoichet l'choyle b'Shabbos. You shechet for a choyle on Shabbos, which you were allowed to do because he was a choyle shesh b'sakana. Now you have a vadai here of Kisui, yet it's not doiche Shabbos. So you have a raya against Rabbi Ina. So it's not so fast. Maybe the vadai of Shabbos that Rabbi Yosy is referring to is v'dilmu de avar v'shacha. Maybe the case where someone was machal Shabbos, shechted on Shabbos, and that's where Rabbi Yosy say you're not allowed to do Kisui Hadam. Zok Gemara, it doesn't make sense to say that because Rabbi Yosy is comparing the Shechitah of Shabbos to the Mila. Dumya de Mila, ma Mila b'rshus. Just like Mila on day 8 is done b'rshus, it's lahalacha. Av Kisui number b'rshus. So too, the type of Kisui we're talking about must be on the Shechitah that was done legally, meaning it must be speaking in a case where there was a choyle shesh b'sakana and we shechted an animal on his behalf. And therefore, there's a vadai chi of Kisui. And what does Rabbi Yosy say about that vadai chi of Kisui? It's osir unequivocally. So therefore, we have a raya from Rabbi Yosy against Rabbeinu, which is why Rabbah wanted to sanction him. Amrullah, so now let's just fear us to understand this price. Amrullah, they wanted to slug up Rabbi Yosy's Kavachomer, and they told him, Tkiyah shofer b'gvul teichiach, shein vado doiche Shabbos, usveicha doiche Yom. Frankly, where my sveika, what is the example of a suffix that will be doiche Yom Tov? Elaim is suffix choyel, suffix Yom Tov. If it's talking about, if it's a suffix sveika de Yoma, that's not raya, because hashta vada Yom Tov dochi, if Kiyah shofer is doiche vada Yom Tov, meaning if bigvulim, if it's vada Yom Tov, we know for sure you're allowed to blow shofer, suffix Yom Tov, suffix choyel beboy. If it's only a suffix Sveika de Yoma, Havada is going to be doiche because it's not even Vada Yom Tov. So that can't be what Rabbi Yosy is referring to when he says, I'm sorry, that can't be what Amrullah is referring to when they say that it's not, that the Sveika is doiche Yom Tov, because that's not a Chiddush, it's a Safek Yom Tov. So let's turn on to today's daf, Pei Amar Aleph.
In the 2 days Rosh Hashanah, one to Sveika the
Well, not anymore. But at one
Rashi's-
point it was. Now they gave it kedusha,
But even Eretz
but it's
Yisrael
still
has
only
2 days,
at the most it's only midirabana.
right? Because even Eretz Yisrael has 2 days.
Right. Originally, it didn't. The Torah only says 1 day, but the Rabbanan said we need even in Eretz Yisrael we need more time to be poyalois what we need to. So they spread it to 2 days, but it's still midirabana. Ella, you know what the case must be when we're saying Suffolk Kish Shofar is Doicha Yom Tov? It must refer to a Suffolk Ish, Suffolk Isha. And if you bought the Suffolk Ish to a Suffolk Isha, so it's a Suffolk if this person is Mechuyev with Kish Shofar, and it's still Doicha. So Rabbi Yosy has the Kal V'chomer. How does he diffuse this Kash on the Kal V'chomer? Simply, Rabbi Yosy l'tamei the Amar Ishta Vadois Nami Taka. Rabbi Yosy holds a lady is allowed to blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, even though it's a Vadai. How do I know this? The Tanya B'nei Yisrael Soimchin V'loi B'noi Yisrael Soimchin. If a woman brings a carbon, she doesn't do smicha. However, Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon Oimrim Nochin Soimchos Rishos. And Rashi says Soimchos Rishos. The Avagav D'loi Mechayva. Even though a woman technically is not mechuyev in smicha, she still can if she wants to. We don't say it's a female doing avoida that would pass to the carbon. When it comes to blowing the shofar, a woman is allowed to do that mitzvah, and therefore it's no longer a suffix. A woman is vadai allowed to blow shofar, so therefore, Dr. Yosy, I still have my raya that you don't have the kasha from Tkiyah shofar that it's vadai is doiche Shabbos. Or Vada is not Doicha Shabbos, yet it's Suffolk is Doicha Yom Tov, there's no such thing as Suffolk, because it's not a Suffolk. Mimonashach, if she's a man, if it's a woman, they're allowed to blow shofar.
Does he understand the reason that there's a 2-day yontif on Rosh Hashanah is because it's the only yontif that comes out on the first of the month. And you don't know if the Adam are going to come, so therefore they made it a 2-day yontif. That had to happen right away.
But that would have also only been with your opponent. That's not with the Raisa.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, well, that's true. But it must have been instituted immediately by Moshe Rabbeinu.
Well, doesn't the Mishnah say that if the Adam came earlier in the day, then the first day would be Yom Tov. But if the Adam came later in the day, then they would make both days Yom Tov. So it depended on the year.
Right, but you never knew when they would come, right? Even on the first year of Rosh Hashanah, you never knew when they were going to come. So they had to make
they had to play Yom Tov just in case it would end up being Yom Tov.
That's right. So it's not something that later on.
So actually, the first day would have been the Suffolk Deraisa.
Right. So it's not the first. It had to be immediately.
Well, let me ask you a different question. When they say Mekudesh, and when Bezin says Mekudesh, does that make it Kedusha Chal at that point in time? So let's say they didn't come at 2:00, and Bezin said Mekudesh. Does that make it Kaddish from 2:00 and on, or does that make it that it was already Kaddish from the day before?
That I don't know. It had to be from the day before.
It was before. No, not muted anymore. The Gemara speaks about that. If it was before, it was a plag mincha or something like that, a mincha katana, then there would be the next day. Sorry, if it was before mincha katana, it'd be beforehand.
Because if it was too late in the day, they couldn't even bring the carbonas in.
Yeah, it wasn't enough time.
So that's why they made it into 2-day yontif. But they didn't wait for like the year, 50 years after Matan Torah.
But we could still agree that if the Eden did come the first day, the second day is for sure only midrabanan, and even there, the second day is only midrabanan. It wouldn't be a chiddush that it's vadai could be toicha yom tov because that's only a derabanan day. So the Gemara's argument is still very valid.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's see the Gemara weiter. So zok the Gemara weiter. Omer Ravina ulamai dekami rabbanon nami isleper. Even according to the Rabbanon, that it's taka asofik if a woman is mechuyev, it's still not a kasha. Because you know what I could say? Malik kia shofar shekein vada doiche Shabbos b'mikdash. Kia shofar has a chumrah over kisi adam because kia shofar vadai is doiche Shabbos b'mikdash. On Shabbos they blew shofar in the Beis Hamikdash. However, b'kisui the lesser klal never will kisu hadam be doiche Shabbos. So don't say that kia shofar yochiach. So that just like kia shofar, it's sveicha. It's sveicha is doiche yom tov. Who didn't kisu sveicha should be doiche yom tov because kia shofar has a chumrah that kisui does not have. So that's the first upslug to the kal v'chomer, and then heishav Rabbi Elazar Kaba beribi. He slugs up Rabbi Yoshi's kal v'chomer because mila is kuladik. Mala mila shekein einin aheges beleila yamim toivim. Frank Gemara, I don't understand. Beleila yamim toivim hudulay nahaga b'shar leili nahaga. What is the statement that Rabbi Elazar Kaba made? That mila is not negeya by leila yamim toivim. Mila is not negay about any night. We don't do Mila. So Frank the Gemara, Elo, really, you have to adjust what Rabbi Elazar Kapper said to the following. Period. Therefore, you cannot bring a raya that Kisa Adam, Suffolk is not Doiche Yom Tov. Amar Baba, Zechad ben Advarim, Shomer Abchia, Ainli Alei Tshuva. This is one of the things where Abchia said about Rabbi Yosy's Kal V'chomer that it's rock solid. Nevertheless, V'heishiv Rabbi Elazar HaKapar Beribi Berebi Tshuva. Rabbi Elazar HaKapar came up with a good upslug, and that its Mila has a weakness in that it's not noyig at night. Okay, now we're back to easy. Hashochet v'nimtza straight. So now we're discussing Shechitah she'eina Reuya. We discussed by Yosy v'Spinoi, Shechitah she'eina Reuya. It was a machlokes of a shmo Shechitah or lo shmo Shechitah, and according to one shita, we'll see in a minute. According to Reb Meir shita, it would still have an iser of Yosy v'Spinoi. According to Reb Shimon, who holds Shechitah she'eina Reuya lo shmo Shechitah, there would not be an iser of Yosy v'Spinoi. Now we have the same discussion in relation to Kisui Adam. All of these animals are not allowed to be eaten. Or if a chayiv who murdered somebody, or there was a Reuya v'nirva involved, which means they're chayiv skila, they're asumano. Reb Meir mechayiv, even though it's a shechita she'eina Reuya, Reb Meir holds that it's shechita she'eina Reuya shema shechita, it'll be mechuyev in Kisui Adam. Chachamim pater, but the Chachamim pater, which would be Reb Shimon, who holds shechita she'eina Reuya lo shema shechita. What about a shechita with a snabla b'yadai or a noichav b'maker? So that's not a shechita at all. That's potem ilchatzois because it was not a shechita. Now you might notice in the pasuk of Kisui Adam, it doesn't mention the word shechita. It says v'ishish v'bnei Yisrael b'nager agar b'seichom asher yotzud seid chaya oif v'shofach es damai. Does not say anywhere the word shechita, but you're going to soon see the Gemara is going to point out it does say asher yeyachel. It has to be edible, which would then include that it have to have been shechted properly. So Amar Abchia, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Roa Rebbe, Dvor Shor Reb Meir ba'Yosy v'Spinoi. V'Shalei v'Lo Chachamim. It's interesting that in the Yosy v'Spinoi, the Rebbe was citing the Mishnah and said that Chachamim Ma'imrim there's an Isser of Yosy v'Spinoi even by a Shechitah she'eina Reuya, and therefore Rebbe in the Mishnah of Yosy v'Spinoi referred to Reb Meir Shechitah as V'Chachamim Ma'imrim. But in our Mishnah, it says V'Chachamim Ma'imrim Shechitah she'eina Reuya lo shmo Shechitah, which means that over here Rebbe liked Reb Shimon Shita, and that's why he labeled Reb Shimon Shita with V'Chachamim Ma'imrim. Usually, when Rebbe uses the word V'Chachamim Ma'imrim, that is the Shita who he passed him like. So Reb Shimon b'Kisui Adam v'Shani b'lo Chacham. So you see clearly Rebbe held like Reb Shimon in our sugya by Kisui Adam, but not like Reb Shimon by Yosy v'Spinoi. So we're going to have to see the reasoning for Rebbe why in one place would he hold Shechitah she'eina Reuya shmo Shechitah, which is Yosy v'Spinoi. Yet over here he would hold Shechitah she'eina Reuya lo shmo Shechitah. Why? Why would Rebbe make this split? So look where my time of Reb Meir by Yosy v'Spinoi. What is the reasoning for Reb Meir by Yosy v'Spinoi, where he holds it's also even with a Shechitah she'eina Reuya? Amar Shul ben Levi, Gomer Shechitah Shechitah mishchutei chutz. it says and the pasuk by Shchutei Chutz also uses the word Shechitah, and therefore we learn Mahosom Shechitah Shein Reuya Shema Shechitah. Just like the Shechitah of Kotchev Bechutz, it definitely will not be matert lachila. Yet it's still considered a Shechitah. Someone's chayiv korish for doing so. Afachanami, so too when it comes to the issue of Oisves Benoi, Shechitah Shein Reuya Shema Shechitah. Rab Shimon held that there's no Isser Oisves Benoi. Why not? Rab Shimon, my time. Or Mani Bar Patish, because he learns the Shechitah of Oishev Benoi from Mitavoyach Hevach V'Hachein, where it says by Yosef when he was entertaining his brothers, he prepared for them a Suda that was edible of course. Mal Shechitah Reuya, because Yosef was preparing the meal to eat with his brothers. Afkan Shechitah Reuya. Break the Gemara of our Meir Nami Ligmar Mitavoyach. Why don't you learn from Tvoyach and say that Oishev Benoi only applies by a Shechitah Reuya? If you have Gzer Shava, you darshan with like words, not unlike words. Shechita and Tvicha are unlike words. Frankly, unlike words are still good for Gzer Shava. Manaf Kamina. Atana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, the Shava Koin Uba Koin. We, by the Nige Batim, the coin comes back twice. He comes to check it twice. By one where he comes, it says Allah Shava Koin. By the other time when he comes back, it says Uba. Now, those are two different words, Shavuba, yet we do make a Gzer Shava from the Shava coin to a Ba coin to say that the same halachas that apply. The first time he comes back to visit applies, the second time he comes back to visit. And Zui Shiva, Zui Bia. And we said that even though they're not the same words, but it's referring to the same action, and therefore you could still make the Gzer Shava. So, more true, you could make that Gzer Shava. But that's if you can't find a more similar term. Here we have the word Shechitah versus the word Tvoyach. Why does Rab Shimon learn from Shchutei Chutz to say that by Oisves Benoi, Shechitah Shein Reuya should be Shema Shechitah, like Rab Meir did? Because he holds Don and Chullin Mechulin, Vein Don and Chullin Mechulin. You cannot learn Oisves Benoi, which is a halacha by Chullin, to or from Shchutei Chutz, which is of course only by Kotchev. Rab Meir says that's not a kasha. Adu Oisves Benoi beKotchev mi loy noi. Oisves Benoi also applies by Kotchev. So it's very appropriate to learn Oisves Benoi from Shchutei Chutz. Now it seems like because of that, Rab Meir is a good taina. That's exactly why Rebbe liked it. Taina to come Rab Chia, Ra Rebbe Dvar of Rab Meir ba'Oisves Benoi. V'shani b'Losh Chacham. That's why Rab Meir. That's why Rebbe was soisim the Mishnah that the Chachamim say Shechitah Shein Reuya Shema Shechitah by Oisves Benoi. Therefore, if you check the treipa, there will still be an issue Oisves Benoi. My time in Meir Bekitzu. What's as far here in our Mishnah? Why even a Shechitah Shein Reuya would be mechuyev in Kisui Hadam? So to Gemara, Amar Rab Shimon ben Lakish Gomar Shvicha Mishchutei Chutz. It says V'shafach Doma by Kisui Hadam. It says Shvicha by Chutei Chutz. Mal alon Shechitah Shein Reuya Shema Shechitah. Afkan Shechitah Shein Reuya Shema Shechitah. But Rab Shimon Omer Asher Yeyachel Ksiv in the parsha of Kisui Hadam, it says Asher Yeyachel. Clearly, it has to be edible. It must be a Shechitah Reuya. Rab Meir, what's Rab Meir going to do with Asher Yeyachel? That to be b'mayit if someone shechted an oif tamei, that the blood wouldn't require kisui. For Rab Shimon, oif tamei, my time. What is the reason why you're saying an oif tamei is excluded from Asher Yeyachel? Because you're not allowed to eat it. So that's the rule. So Obzei Treifa should fit exactly into that same rule. Treifa nami lavar achilahu, and therefore there should not be a din kisui that. Shimon has a good title. And you don't Reb Chia, Rabbi Devar of Rab Shimon beKisui Hadam v'shani b'Losh Chacham. So that's why Rabbi was able to split it. And by Oisves Benoi, it was mistaber to say Shechitah Shein Reuya Shema Shechitah. Therefore, it's aser to Shech Benoi that day. But by Kisui Hadam, it was mashma from like Rab Shimon said that Sheyachel, that the only type of Kisui Hadam that's required is if it's a Shechitah that would allow it to actually be eaten. Amar Rabba. Zokner Baba turning onto the face. Loy Lakol Omer Reb Meir Shechitah Sheni Rosh Mashchita. When Reb Meir said Shechitah Sheni Rosh Mashchita, it doesn't apply everywhere. There's an exception to that rule because Moed Reb Meir she'ein mati rasa b'achiv. The Shechitah wouldn't be matir lefty. Now, of course, the Gemara is going to ask Pshita, not a good Shechitah. It's a treifa. But we're going to get to the Chiddush shortly. And V'loy Lakol Omer Reb Shimon Shechitah Sheni Reuya Lois Mashchita. And when Reb Shimon said Shechitah Sheni Reuya Lois Mashchita, it's also not across the board because there are also places where it wouldn't apply. Moide Reb Shimon shemetarasa mideineve. Shimon's moide that the Shechitah she'ein Reuya, if you shech the treifa, at least it would not be tummy to Mustafa. Amar, let's drill over here. Let's drill down. When the call Amar Meir Shechitah she'ein Reuya shmashchita, moide Reb Meir she'ein matirasa b'achiv. Frank Mar Pshita, of course. Treifa b'shchita, mi mishtaria. Would anybody conceive that you could shech the treifa and it'll be a kosher shchita? That can't be the chiddush. Rather, l'tricha l'shoichet es a treifa. You shechted a mother that was a treifa, and in its stomach was a ben pekua umatzava ben teschat. So salkadai techamina, I would have thought hoyel the Amar Meir shchita she'ein Reuya shma shchita. Even though this is a shchita she'ein on the mother, because the mother's a treifa, but it's still called shchita, and therefore tahani le shchita sinoi. This ben pekua that was found alive should be muter b'shchitas imoi, because even though it was a shchita she'ein Reuya, but it's still a shchita, and this baby is not a treifa, and v'loy leboy shchita, and it shouldn't need its own shchita. Kamash malan that it needs its own shchita, as we discussed a couple of blood ago, that when you're shechting the ben pekua, I want to say ben pekua, it's exempt from shchita. How does shechting it help? So we had a svar from Reb Shimon that said that a ben pekua, you have an option of two sets of two simanim. You can either use the two simanim of the mother, or you can use the two simanim of the vlad. So kamash malon that you could shech the ben pekua itself, and it would work, but the shchita of the mother would not. Frankly, more of a tizbra, this whole thing doesn't make sense because we're talking in Reb Meir. We know Reb Meir holds never does the shchita of the mother matter a ben pekua. Remember, Reb Meir ben pekua ton shchita. So this whole thing doesn't make sense. So you're right, that's Reb Meir himself. But we're talking over here in Rebbe. Lo tzricha the Rebbe savalak Reb Meir. He holds like Reb Meir that shchita she'ein Reuya shma shchita, but for savalak Rabbanon that the shchita of a ben pekua does work. Savalok Reb Meir da mashchita she'ein Reuya shma shchita. Savalok Rabbanon da mashchita s'imay mitayras. So now, Sophirois, Kivon do Amar Rabbanon shchita s'imay mitayras. Once the Rabbanon say that normally by ben pekua, what's the shchita that's chal on the vlad, the mother's shchita, and he holds shchita she'ein Reuya shma shchita. So even though the mother was a treifa, the shchita is still a good shchita, and the about the child is not a treifa. Tahani le shchita s'imay. The shchita of the mother should help with the ben pekua. V'loy levoy shchita that shouldn't require its own shchita. Kamash malon that in fact it does require its own shchita. So that's the exception. Even though our mayor held shchita she'ein Reuya shma shchita, the exception is the ben pekua would still require its own shchita, and its mother's shchita wouldn't be effective for it. V'loy lekol Amar Reb Shimon shchita she'ein Reuya lo shma shchita because moider Reb Shimon shemitarasu midei devei. Again, the Gemara asks shchita, of course. The Amar B'Yehuda Amar Rav, Amar Lo Misnisa Tana. It says v'chiyamus min habehem. We learned this earlier. Not all behemoths are tamei. Only some behemoths that die are tamei. Miktas behema metama, miktas behema eina metama. Beizoi zutrefa sheshachta. That's not going to be tamei to misnavela. So what's this chiddush that Reb Shimon, that the brides are saying in Reb Shimon? The case was l'shoichet es a treifa v'hichulin bazar. You shechted an animal that was treifa or could not to be treifa, and it was chulin bazar. Normally, if you shecht chulin bazar, Kritas chulin bazara makes it asur b'hana, it's asur to eat. But here, it was a shchitas treifa, so it wasn't a shchita of chulin bazar. It was a partial shchita of chulin bazar. The Tanya we learned, shoichet is a treifa. The chena shoichet v'nimtzas treifa. It's either if you knew it was treifa, there was an outward signal that it was treifa, it was missing stumas agittin, or v'chena shoichet v'nimtzas treifa. Or you shechted an animal and you saw its lungs. Afterwards, you were avoided and you saw it was treifa. Zev is a chulin bazara. Either one was chulin, you shechted it in the azara, which normally would make it asur b'hana. Reb Shimon mate b'hana. Reb Shimon holds it's muter b'hana. Why does he hold it's muter b'hana? Because it's not a proper shchita. If it's not a proper shchita, it's not called shechting chulin bazara. Therefore, it wouldn't be also ban. But the Chachamim hold it will be also. So Solkadat Chamina, I would have thought in Rab Shimon, Rab Shimon Mutar Bano, because it's a Shechitah Sheni Reuya, Loish Shechitah. Maybe Almalach Shechitah Klal, and maybe it will be Tomei. Ema Midei Nevela Nami Loy Metaira. If you're saying Lagabe Shchutei Chutz, it's not going to be a Shechitah, and therefore it won't be Asher Bano. So then say it's not a good Shechitah Lagabe being Metaira Midei Nevela either. Kamash Lon, you split it. Lagabe Shchutei Chutz, it's not considered a Shechitah. Lagabe Nevela, it is considered a Shechitah. Now there is a machloikis that Chullin Ba'azara is Asher Bano. Is that midaraisa or midarabban? Now, if it's Asher midarabban, then why would they ask for Chullin Ba'azara midarabban? Very simple. Someone sees you shechting an animal ba'azara. Their assumption is that it's a carbon. Then they see you eating it in your house. They're going to think, hey, you're allowed to eat kachim in your house. So therefore, they made a gzera that any chullin that was shechted ba'azara, we say you're prohibited from eating it, because otherwise it's going to fool people into thinking that you're allowed to eat kachim at home. Now, if that's the reason why it's osir, so how could Rab Shimon be matrid b'ana? Whether it's treifa, it's not treifa, people don't chap. If they see that you shechted meat inside, it has to be osir b'ana. So zok the Gemara, it must be Amali Rapapal Abaye v'sofer Rab Shimon chulun b'azara dairaisi. It must be that Rab Shimon holds that chulun b'azara is a dairaisa. We bought it the dairaisa. Then when there's a technical issue of chulun b'azara, so it will be osir. There's not a technical issue of chulun b'azara, then it won't be osir. Because if it's a derabanan, mimonashich, it should be osir. So zok the Gemara, is that the case? Taka the Rab Shimon taka hold that chulun shenishchadu b'azara midairaisa is osir b'achila. But we're in, yes, that's exactly what Rab Shimon holds, and I'll verify it from a different Mishnah. But Tanan Rab Shimon Aimer, chulun shenishchadu b'azara yisruf. If chulun was shechted b'azara, yisrufu b'eish, you have to burn it, you have to destroy it, it's osher b'ana. V'chein chaya shenishchadu b'azara. And the same thing would be with a chaya. Now chaya for sure can't be daraisa, because by a chaya it's impossible. I'm sorry, I take that back. Chaya could be daraisa. So Dr. Mar, iramit b'shlama daraisa. If you're going to tell me that midaraisa chulun shenishchadu b'azara yisrufu b'eish, then hainu de gazrina and chayu otabei. That's why it would make sense that they would be gozer by chaya as well. And Rashi says that's not really completely accurate, because if chulun b'azara of behema is usher, why would chaya be any different? It would be usher midaraisa. But at least there's justification to say that a chaya that was checked with b'azara would be usher, you have to burn it. If you hold the only reason why it's usher to eat chulun that was shechted b'azara is midrabanan, because people are going to think you're allowed to eat karbonis out of the azara, well then behema my time. The whole reason why behema that was shechted b'azara you're not allowed to eat b'chutz is dilma asila mechel kachim b'chutz, because you might eat kachim. By chaya there's no such svar, because everybody will know that if the chaya was shechted b'fnim, it wasn't a carbon, because never ever is a chaya a carbon. So it would be obvious to anybody that a chaya that was shechted b'fnim was not a carbon. So there's no makom gzeira on the chaya itself. The whole makom gzeira is only on the behema. So if he goof a gzeira, if the only reason why you can't eat a behema shenishchada b'fnim, you're not allowed to eat it b'chutz, is only a gzeira, so then vanan nekum the nigzer gzeira l'gzeira. Why would I ask for a chaya? If you eat a chaya b'chutz, you might eat the behema b'chutz, and if you eat the behema b'chutz, it'll be a gzeira that you might eat kachim b'chutz. You don't do that. Only if it's deraisa, then it makes sense. Chaya and behema should be no different. But if the whole reason why the behema is also is a gzeira, there would be no justification to ask for a chaya. And the fact that the Mishnah says the chaya is osir, it proves that the Mishnah is saying in Reb Shimon that it's osir to eat. Now we have a fascinating story. Rabbi Chia Nafala Yadiva B'Kisnei. He had flax that was processing in a vat of water, and there were some type of moths in there that were going to ruin his ksainis. So he needed to figure out some way to stop them from attacking his ksainis. Also, he came to Rebbe. Shecht a knife, so its blood should go into the water that's right near where you're working on your thing. So it's mashma, he shechted the blood will go into the mishta Now he's going to have red wool, but shecht it into there. And what's going to happen is the moyach dama b'shabbat. They hate the smell of blood, and that's going to chase away all of these insects that are eating up your peg. But frankly, how could Rebbe make such a suggestion? If you're shechting a bird or a chaya and you need its blood, too bad. You can't use its dam. You have to make kisui dam on it. So how would Rebbe suggest such a thing? So what is the eitzah? Oy noichroi, oy oikroi. Don't do a shechitah. Just stab it to death, and then you won't have to do kisui. Kiyosar Abdimi Omar say troif. Abdimi said, just make the bird treifa first. So when you shecht it, it'll be a treifa in the bird, and therefore it wouldn't be mechuyev in kisui. Omar lay Kiyosar Ravin Omar. Kiyosar Abdimi Omar say troif. Omar lay Kiyosar Ravin Omar say nechar Omar. So it's a question: what was said? Did he say troif, and that will part you from kisui dam, or stab it, and that will part you from kisui dam? So number say troif. If you said troif, that's I will part you. My time alone would say nechar. Why would he not say nechar? That would also part you from kisui dam. The chitemaka suffer ein shchita life min Torah. If you're going to say he held ein shchita life min Torah, and even if you made nechira on the oif, it would still be mechuyev in kisui adam. So therefore, he had to say troif. That's not true, because the Tanya Rebbe Omer, we know Rebbe holds kasher tzivisicha, that it says legabe preparing animals malamich in the stave Moshe ala veshet valakona al roy bechad boif al roy shnai bebehema. So there's a deraisa to shech the bird. So why didn't he say nechar? And that would have also parted you from kitzu adam. Turning on to pay Vav Amud Aleph.
It's Veshet.
I'm sorry. But I'll tell you that for sure he holds it's Veshet. Because if he held it was Veshet, he would have said Vaishet. Okay. So what he's really saying is let me boy. Let me boy take Nechar. Surely take Nechar. The Lav Shechitah he klau. So there for sure you wouldn't have to do kisui dam. He's even saying, even say troif would be enough. I will say troif, ema shchita shein Reuya, shma shchita b'leboy kisui, like Reb Meir, the mashmalon to kibar abba, that shchita shein Reuya is loisha shchita, loishma shchita by kisui dam, and you wouldn't have to make kisui. So come with the one say nechar, my time lo say troif. Why didn't he say troif? If you're going to hold that he holds that by kisui adam, shchita shein Reuya shma shchita, and that wouldn't part you from kisui adam. Yomar b'chim or b'yochanan, Ra Rebbe dvar of Shor Shimon b'kisui adam. B'shana b'loshen chachamim. We know Rebbe held that by kisui adam, a treifa you don't do kisui adam. So tomorrow you're right. It's also Levi boy come. Levi boy say treif to shchita shein Reuya shma shchita. It's pachid that if it was a treifa, that would allow him not to do kisui adam. But I will say nechar ema ein shchita life in the Torah. When nechira says shchita soy, but could be by nechira you would be mechuyev in kisui, liboy kisui, kamash long kasher tzivisicha. That's good for what he's teaching you. That it's shchita la'oif min Torah. Now, for more, how did this story b'chalal happen? That Reb Chia was suffering from such an ailment? Could Reb Chia have such an incident that such a natural occurrence should cause some damage? When the Bnei Agoyla came up, meaning at first there was a bad level, a low level of observation of mitzvahs, and because of that, the Klal Yisrael, the community suffered. But with the Bnei Agoyla, and we'll see who that Bnei Agoyla are, when they came up, all the trouble stopped. Pasko Azikin, there was no more shooting stars. Zavois, there was no more earthquakes. Baruchos, there was no wild winds. Ra'amim, I'm not sure what Ra'amim are. If someone can look it up in the art scroll. Their wine didn't become
Thunder.
And their wine didn't become chametz. But the most important one is they didn't suffer from insects eating up their pishtan. And who are the Bnei Agoyla? Reb Chia, there it was their schus that saved the entire community from the pishtan getting damaged. How is it possible that their pishtan got damaged? Dr. Mora, because their schus helped protect all of Klal Yisrael. I will add it too, but for their own selves, loy. Could Rav Yudah Marav, like Yudah Marav used to say, number Yudah Marav, B'chol Yoyim V'Yoyim Bas Kol Yoytzes V'Meres. Kol Oilam Kuloi Nizayin V'Shvil Chanina B'ni. The whole world gets its mezoides from Chanina, the son of Rabbi Yehuda. I think it was the son of Rabbi Yehuda. Who Rabbi Chanina ben Dois. I'm sorry, Chanina ben Dois. Rabbi Chanina ben Dois, his chus brought parnosa to all of Klal Yisrael. But the Chanina ben he kamat suffered. He did not parnosa. Dialoid the kaf charuvin with one kaf of books from erev Shabbos to erev Shabbos. So it's not unusual that you can have a godel who in his chus everybody is being protected, yet he himself mitzvah. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we were zoicha to finish Pei Dalet and part of Pei Hey, and we're able to satisfy my OCD. And Be'ez Hashem on Shabbos, we will do Pei Hey. And Be'ez Hashem, I hope to be able to be in Shul. Pei Vav. I hope to be able to be in Shul Shabbos. And I even came to push me to Shul.
Are we going to learn an hour before Mincha?
Yeah, we'll learn an hour before Mincha like every other week. Be'ez Hashem is Baruch. Shkoyach.
Good Shabbos. Feel good.
Good Shabbos, feel good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.